Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Chris, this is Ducklope Outdoors, and today we're going to be doing the top 5 tips for public land duck hunting. So if you're new here, go ahead and smash that subscribe button for me. Let's go ahead and get right into it. Alright, so here for my top 5 picks. So number 1, scouting. Scouting is so important. The thing I like to do is pre-scout. So you can either use base map, which I was pretty fond of until they just recently updated their software and completely trashed base map. So I'm not recommending that to anybody anymore. I'm going to go ahead and transition over to Ornex, and Ornex is what I'm going to be using this season. So I'm going to spend the extra $20, $30 for it, and we'll see how that treats me. Use some sort of imagery. Another thing, if you don't want to pay for Ornex or base map, another good thing to use is like Google Earth. Google Earth, I even use it in the military. You can scroll all the way down and look at certain areas. You won't be able to look at property lines or anything like that, but it'll at least give you a good overlay, so that way you don't have to physically walk out there in the woods and take a look. You can get a general idea of what it's going to look like, the imagery that it's going to provide you there. Now, once you get out there and scout, a big thing that you want to look for is food sources. So if you're a big wood duck hunter like myself, you want to look for acorns. So if you're floating the rivers, you want to look for acorns along the banks, and if you have like islands in the middle of like your rivers, you want to look for acorns in those locations as well. Another thing is smartweed. Smartweed is like the biggest food source for ducks. But you have to put in the miles, whether if it's on foot or floating your rivers or using your boat, you just got to get out there and do it. People always say this is the off season in the summertime. This is the time to put in the miles and put in the work and start scouting out those areas for possible holds of where the ducks would be. And then once you get on top of your season or during the season, just keep going back to those spots and see if you see any birds sitting. Now tip number 2, matching the hatch. This is commonly referred to in the fishing industry of matching the hatch. So you typically want to throw a bait that the fish are eating. Now, how I convert this into the waterfowl world is this bounces off of your scouting. So let's say that you gave up a day of hunting and you wanted to go scout. So you want to match the hatch by how many birds are you seeing, what type of birds, whether if they're wood ducks or they're mallards or they pintails. Are they a complete mix of everything out on the lake? How are they grouped? So are they grouped in 3 to 5? Are they grouped to 10 to 20 or even larger? When the birds are flying around, they want to see things where if they're heavily pressured in a public area. Typically people always go out there and they throw 3 to 4 dozen down, or however much they can carry with them. Let's say that you're hunting an area where it only holds 3 to 4 birds at a time every time you go out there to see it. Maybe that's all you need to bring is just a half dozen decoys and just toss them, and that'll work for you. Another thing of matching the hatch is confidence decoys. So like, let's say that you're in Tennessee like myself and you see a whole bunch of coots all the time. Maybe coots is something to add into your spread for the confidence part. So go pick you up a half dozen and toss those in there with your spread as well. So if the ducks are used to seeing the coots sitting in with the ducks as well, it's only going to match them even more, and it's going to make them think that your spread is realistic. Now tip number 3, cover and concealment. I say that because the other verbiage is used way too much so far as hide or you're blind. So making sure your blind is camouflaged. Cover and concealment covers 2 things for you. So you want cover, obviously something over your head, because what we're aiming for is something that's flying around, so it's looking down on you. So you obviously need cover. Something that where whatever's looking down on you can't see you. So whether if it's a roof or more brush that you piled up over you to make like a dome, or you get under some trees or some brush. If you're hiding in a weed line, yeah, you got the concealment because you're concealed, you're back behind something, but the cover isn't there. So you want to look for something over top of you and something in front of you, to where you just have an opening of like a 45-degree area. That way you're covered and concealed. Camouflage, if you're not blended in with the environment, the birds are going to see you. They're not going to work. They're not going to come land in your spread. And another tip to cover and concealment is, typically when birds do not want to work, or they don't want to finish for you, people always look at it at a way of, oh, well, it's my spread, or it's the mojos, or, somebody's calling as well. Yes, it could be, one of those three things, but typically it always has to do with the birds saw you. So the first thing you want to check is your cover and concealment. But I can harp all day on that, because that's the biggest mistake of all waterfowl hunters, and hunters in general, whether you're a deer hunter or heck, even squirrel. You gotta be covered and concealed. Now tip number 4, calling. Calling, we can all we can bounce back and forth. It's a big argument within the waterfowl industry. Calling is something that a lot of people are either really into it or they're kind of reserved, like myself. Me personally, I do not like tons and tons of calling. Now, let's say you're matching a hatch and you go out there and you hear birds talking, just constantly quacking, constantly doing feeding calls, that sort of thing. Then yes, when we get into like this, that's your feeding chuckle. That is a machine gun feeding chuckle. I don't recommend it. Now, if the birds are doing that, then I say go ahead and match that hatch and do it. As for this, that's your highball. Me personally, I've never heard that highball before, ever, and I've hunted in Maryland, Virginia, Tennessee. I did a little bit out in Kansas when I was stationed out there at Fort Riley, and I never heard a highball like that before in my life. But it is an attention getter. If that's something that you want to get into, then you're more than welcome to do that. But as for me, you want to stick to a simple quack. You want to stick to a simple comeback call, not a super long, drawn-out highball call. And your feeding chuckles are nice and short and crisp, and just you can bounce it off with those quacks, and just don't make it like super over the top. Because typically when you go out there to public lands, you can just listen and hear what everybody else is doing, and if it's working for them, then maybe you want to do it. But typically you want to stray away from that, do something different, so that way when the birds are starting to work, and they're getting screamed at by every other hunter out there on the public land, and you're doing something subtle, something soft, crisp, the birds are more than likely to work your spread and come in and land for you. Now my last tip number 5, be friendly. Now you're probably thinking, what is this dude talking about, be friendly? Alright, so I want to say this right off the bat, is so far as being friendly, you can make friends out in the woods. You can make enemies out in the woods. If you make friends, you're more than likely to get invited by them later on down the road, or they can point out other spots for you, or y'all could end up working together. It can make or break a hunt. Being friendly is something that is lost in the hunting industry, because when you turn around and you launch your boat or launch your kayak, or you're walking out into the woods out to your spot, someone could have beat you. And people always say, yeah, have plan B, have plan C and D, and so forth. Yes, you should do that. But, however, you should at least walk up there. Let's say that you've been scouting that spot for a few weeks. Walk out there. The people are already, they're starting to throw out their decoys and that sort of thing. And go ask them if you could hunt with them. I mean, around here so far, they've been pretty nice to me in Tennessee. People are always willing to help you and take you out. For example, is D&D Outdoors. They hit me up when I was out in Maryland before I moved out here, and they said, hey, come hunt with us. So because they knew I was hunting in the same area as them, it's less competition, and we developed a friendship, and we plan on hunting together again this season. So by being friendly, like I said, you can make or break a hunt. And let's say that you're the one setting up the decoys, and somebody else comes walking in and they ask to join you. Like, yes, you can let them, but let's say your party's too big or something like that, and you can let them down softly. Don't be a douche about it. But maybe that guy has had a rough time. Maybe this is his good reset from work. Maybe he needs somebody to talk to, or something. You could potentially save a life by letting the guy hunt with you instead of giving them that extra stressor. Like, oh man, now I have 30 minutes to get to this next spot to throw out decoys before sunrise. You could have really helped him out mentally. Obviously helped him out physically, because now he doesn't have to walk all the way back to the truck and go to a different spot, and you can develop a friendship. So now that goes without saying, all these tips, there's tons and tons of other tips with hunting public land, but those are my top 5 things, and hopefully this will help you out this next coming season. I hope you take it to heart, and especially that last tip. I can't stress it enough. It's definitely helped me out over the past years, and hopefully it'll help you out too. If you haven't subscribed already, I'd greatly appreciate if you go ahead and hit that subscribe button for me. Hit the like button and leave a comment and let me know what you think. If I left something out, just let me know. We can chat about it, and hopefully other people will read it too, and we can go ahead and develop from there. If you are from the Tennessee area, go ahead and let me know, and hopefully we can link up together and maybe go hunt this season. But as always, y'all stay safe.